Now, first of all, do you know who I am?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to know that you are absolutely free to answer. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Your solicitor has made a complaint about the way you've been treated while you've been on remand here. Is there anything you want to tell me? You have lost a considerable amount of weight.
Yes.
Are you receiving medical attention?
Since yesterday, pills and vitamins.
Ah, now that interests me. Why was nothing done until yesterday?
It was only yesterday that Mr. Stenhill insisted that they look after me.
But surely you were examined by the medical staff before that. Well, didn't they notice anything?
They said I wasn't worth bothering about.
Did you tell the governor? What did she say?
She said I'd be disciplined if I caused trouble.
Is that all?
She said if I wasn't careful, I'd be put on a special diet.
Yeah, but you have been eating.
Oh, yes, all I can get, but the food's so awful you can hardly swallow it.
Prisoners on remand may have their own food sent in from outside if they ask for it.
Did you know that?
I did ask. They told me what I'd get if I caused extra work for them.
Who?
The screws, the warders.
You mean they threatened you?
They're always telling me what they'll do if I get convicted.
What will they do?
Make me wish that I'd been hanged. But it can't be worse than it is now, shouting at me, banging on the door at night to keep me awake.
Are you aware of this?
No, and I find it hard to believe.
You don't believe it because you don't want to believe it. You never see anything. Look, pulling at me and kicking. Who do you think did that?
These are serious allegations. I believe that the prison has a case to answer.
The bruising looks bad, but it's neither deep nor extensive.
How could they have been caused, Doctor?
Well, the bruising on the arms could have been caused by pinching or gripping tightly, but the wounds on the shoulder and the back of the legs, well, they look like a kick or a blow. See, only one thing's really certain. They've all appeared pretty recently.
The story appeared in the newspapers yesterday morning. Are you telling me that she has been physically ill-treated since then?
Well, the symptoms have appeared since then.
What about the loss of weight?
I'm afraid it's accelerating. I'm having her meal served in the hospital wing, and the nursing sister checks to make sure that she is eating, but it still continues.
Mrs. Armitage?
I've just been speaking to Sister, madam. These bruises on Martha Kyle. She did them herself, of course.
I can't say that.
But you must.
I think we must leave it to the doctor, Mrs. Armitage.
All I can say is that it's possible, even likely. But if they were self-inflicted, she'd have to be capable of great determination and ability to stand pain.
She's capable of that, all right. She's capable of anything.
Well, I try not to make such judgments. Right. Good night, Mrs. Boswell.
Good night, Doctor.
I'm sorry, madam. It's been a shock.
I understand.
If only we kept a 24-hour watch on her, as I asked.
No doubt there are many things we could have done, but our job now is to see that nothing else happens and that the staff is completely cleared.
Of course, madam.
Good night, Mrs. Armitage.
Good night. What's going on here? Why are all these women in free association?
It's allowed here, Chief.
Do you know what the time is? Get all those not enrolled in craft or education classes back in their cells. At once!
Right you are, Chief.
Mrs. Armitage, what right have you to interfere with my orders?
I hadn't realised you were here, Miss Harker.
Give it back. Give it back. Ralph, leave me alone, you're back.
What's the matter?
I know you did.
Nothing, Chief. It's only old Georgie creating. She took my new box of matches. They was between us on the seat. She stole them.
I never. I'm a Nora, I can tell you.
Turn out your pockets.
Mrs. Armitage.
You're not going to treat me like Martha Kyle.
Turn out your pockets. And the other one.
There, you see? They're mine all right, never been touched. Bill?
Hello, darling.
I thought you were in Brussels.
After what you said on the phone, I made a point of getting the English papers today.
Oh, darling.
I had a few words with Paul before he went out.
You weren't angry?
No. Though I did tell him that as your son, he might do you the courtesy of not adding to the strain on you. It seems that he and his student friends are beginning to agitate about this girl's treatment.
What are they saying?
Oh, mental sadism, inhuman medical treatment, and so on. What are this Kyle woman and her lawyer really up to?
Well, I'm not supposed to talk about it.
Come on, you needn't go into details.
Well, you remember the outcry after the shooting in the magistrate's court, when the policeman was killed?
Yes.
Well, she was seen to pass the guns to the men. Her fingerprints had been found on them.
So she's no chance of getting off. And this whole campaign of how much she's suffering and how badly she's being treated just to get public sympathy onto her side before the trial. These stories about her being kicked and so on.
You don't believe them?
Now, don't misunderstand me, Faye. I've only read one side.
But it's enough to worry you. Oh, I suppose there are many people who think that I haven't got the experience, that I'm not fit for the job. I suppose they've got every right to.
Now, listen, darling, I don't think so. Believe me. All I want's to be sure you know what you're doing. Things are going to get harder for you when and if this investigation starts.
Yes, I know.
When you're in a tough situation, you have to know you can rely on your staff, that you can trust them. Can you?
I think I can. But now I've got to prove to them that they can trust me. They're all looking to me to do something, to find a solution. I haven't got one.
With no reference to me, she ordered the women back to their cells.
I had no idea Miss Harker was there, in view of the way the prisoners were behaving.
Was there a disturbance?
They were in association.
It was time for the evening classes to begin.
It has always been the practice for those not enrolled in classes to be locked up in their cells. If they're not, they just make a noise and interrupt.
Unfortunately, we have nowhere else to put them.
I see. Well, it seems to me there's just been a lack of communication.
Well, there is the business of the matchbox.
Matchbox?
One of the women was accused of stealing a box of matches. Mrs. Armitage forced her to produce it and put her on report.
Well, of course I did. The woman had been stealing.
But it was so trivial, I'd rather have dealt with it myself.
Did you speak to Mrs. Armitage?
Well, I tried to.
In any case, it was too late. The woman accused me of treating her like Martha Kyle.
Well, I believe this just shows the tension that we're all under at the moment. It would be disastrous if it became so obvious to the prisoners that they could take advantage of it.
Very good, madam.
In uniform or out of it, we're all part of the same system. We really must work together.
Yes, Governor.
Come in.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Boswell. I had that report for you.
Please come in. I'd like to hear it. I'd like you both to stay. This may interest you. Please sit down, all of you.
I've been to see Peggy Abbott's children. They're both well and seem to be happy.
Good.
They're being looked after by an uncle and aunt. He's a minister, a very sincere and religious man.
What could he tell you about Peggy?
Well, it appears that her own parents are dead and that she was brought over here on his surety some 5 years ago to assist him, but it didn't work out. Anyway, not long after she arrived, she met her husband, a merchant seaman, and married him against her uncle's wishes.
Is it a happy marriage?
It seemed to be until about 2 years ago. The aunt told me that Peggy's husband said she was a bad wife.